Also, we already have 200,000 doses. 100,000 doses will be used for the first dose, and the second dose will be used by the same vaccine that we are already having in our supply.
Is the Minister aware, as reported by Reuters, the South African Health Minister, on the 10th February 2021, that the South Africa government has the intention to sell 1 million of the vaccine produced by Serum Institute of India and other 500,000 doses, since the South African Minister of Health has announced that the country has already sold 1 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine for distribution in 14 fellow African nations. Can the Honorable Minister of Health assure the House that his ministry is going to contact the South African government urgently to secure part of the remaining 500,000 doses of AstraZeneca?
Mr. Speaker, sir, yes, we are very much well aware of the South Africa not using this vaccination, but they have given it to some organization in Africa, and that organization have been distributing the vaccines up to his purview.
Thank you. Will the Honourable Minister consider a dedicated walk-in service to all persons who has had the vaccine so far, considering that they may get mild to moderate and severe symptoms, so that they can be reassured? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Honourable Member. The Ministry of Health has the Pharmacovigilance Committee to look after the vaccination, that is the post-vaccination period. And through that, there is a dedicated team at the Ministry of Health where the data where we do the data entry and the monitoring of the, if ever there is any event after the vaccination.
Honorable Kirin.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Selon un article de France 24 en date du 19 mars, les États-Unis sont en train d'aider des pays comme le Mexique et le Canada en mettant à leur disposition 4 millions de doses qu'ils n'utilisent plus. Peut-on savoir si le gouvernement a l'intention de solliciter l'aide des États-Unis? Et je pense que ce serait une bonne chose si on pouvait aussi en bénéficier.
Thank you, Honourable Member, for this question. Well, I have to get myself a little bit, have more information about this. Obviously, if there are vaccines available where the other countries are not using, Mauritius will solicit to get these vaccines so that we can use it for our population.
Honorable Juman.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. L'honorable ministre, peut-il nous dire, s'il vous plaît, lors de votre presse briefing quotidienne, le samedi 20 mars, le Dr Zubair Diomaye, président de Vaccination Committee, annonce qu'à vendredi 19 mars, un total de 92 524 personnes se sont fait vacciner d'AstraZeneca. Et hier, lors de ce même exercice, il annonce que samedi le 20 mars, 13 000 personnes se sont fait vacciner, ce qui nous ramène à un total de 105 524 doses d'AstraZeneca. Alors que selon le gouvernement, la vaccination aurait dû s'arrêter à 100 000. Quelle garantie donnez-vous à ceux qui se sont vaccinés par AstraZeneca qu'ils seraient tous inoculés du même vaccin lors du deuxième dose? Il y a environ 11 021.
Yeah. Thank you, Honourable Member, for this question. The vaccines, the second dose of the vaccine will be done in 3 months' time, that is in 12 weeks' time. We started the vaccination in the end of January, and it has ended till Saturday. The next 3 months, there is the COVAX facility who's going to get us only 20,000 doses of the vaccine, and that vaccines will be added to complete the vaccination for those who have already received the first dose.
Can the Honourable Minister state the expiry dates of the Covishield that we have, which are in store?
Yes, I think I'm having many questions related to this topic, but I'm sure that I have the answer. The Covishield vaccination, the expiry date is in July 2021.
Honourable members, the table has been advised that PQ B38 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance. PQ B43 will be replied by the Honourable Minister of Social Integration, Social Security and National Solidarity. The table has been advised that PQ B17, B48, B55 have been withdrawn. The table is also advised that PQB2 has been withdrawn. Next question, Honorable Rangapasad.
16.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I shall reply to PQs B16 and B62 together, as both relate to the conduct of examinations and the health and safety and sanitary measures being implemented. With regard to Part A of PQB 16, I'm informed by the MES that the total number of examination centres is as follows. For PSAC, the 346 centres. For the NC, 143 centres. For SC and HSC, 133 and 92 centres, respectively. As for Part B of the question, arrangements are being made for candidates to be accommodated in examination rooms in such a way as to allow for a physical distancing of at least 1 metre. On 15th March 2021, during a press briefing, I had announced that arrangements were being made with authorities concerned to enable students to sit for their examinations in the best possible manner and under strict observance of established health, sanitary, and safety guidelines and procedures. With regard to the health and safety measures, I wish to reassure the House that following discussions with various ministries concerned, strict guidelines have been devised as follows. Vaccination of the staff of the MES, heads of schools, supervisors, invigilators, and all other personnel involved in the conduct of examinations started on 18th March 2021. Daily cleaning and disinfection of all examination centres to be effected, and even between examination sessions. Public transport facilities have been arranged for all concerned to commute to their examination centres. Transport companies will ensure frequent cleaning and disinfection of their vehicles, allowing sound ventilation so as to eliminate all risks of contamination. All candidates and travellers of the public bus service will have to adhere to specific sanitary measures such as hand sanitizing, wearing of masks at all times, physical distancing, amongst others. In addition, the following measures will be implemented in the examination centres. Strict control will be effected at the entrance of the examination centre. All candidates and examination personnel will be given access to the examination centre upon presentation of their timetables or a pass issued by the MES. Temperature checks at the entrance of the examination centres will be carried out. All persons having access to the examination centre should wear a mask covering their face and mouth. Sanitization of hands at the entrance of the examination centre will be compulsory. Candidates will be directed immediately to their examination room by the examination personnel. Candidates will not be allowed to group up on the premises of the examination centre and will be constantly reminded of the need of social distancing of at least 1 metre at all times. The examination rooms will be disinfected between each examination session. With reference to PQ 62, I wish to inform the House that all candidates having entered for SHS examinations will normally sit for their examination. Should a candidate be detected with high temperature on arrival, the candidate will be placed in an isolation room and the Ministry of Health and Wellness will be immediately contacted. The candidate will sit for his examination in the isolation room as per the protocol established by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. A candidate in quarantine centre will be allowed to take part in the examinations under strict sanitary and examination conditions. A separate hall will be identified for that purpose. The center will be designated by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Candidates tested COVID-19 positive and under treatment will not be allowed to sit for the examinations. However, after having recovered, he or she will be allowed to sit for the examination remaining papers as may be advised by the Ministry of Health and Wellness. I also wish to inform the House that libraries and stationery stores were open from the 16th to the 20th March 2021 to enable students to purchase necessary materials for the practical examinations. Relevant arrangements have also been made for students sitting for food and nutrition, as well as for art and design practical examinations.
I would request the Honourable Minister to inform us whether a special consideration has been given as to the mental health of those students who may be unduly stressed because of the exam stress plus the prevailing pandemic.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry already has a team of psychologists working, and whenever it is felt that there is a need for support, or whenever there is a demand for that, the unit will automatically provide support to the students.
Can we know from the Honourable Minister what measures have been taken by her ministry to ensure accessibility of disabled students to those examinations, please?
Mr. Speaker, sir, we already have a team working on that, and whenever there is a request from any student with special education needs, the needful is done by the MES.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Concernant le National Certificate of Education Examination, la ministre ne pense-t-elle pas que, vu la situation actuelle, qu'il serait souhaitable de renvoyer ces examens à l'année prochaine? Cela éviterait une grande circulation d'enfants en ce moment difficile. Vu que c'est un examen qui a lieu pour la première fois, personne ne sera pénalisé.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we've already planned the exams, and we have been working under the guidance of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. As for the timing of the exams and the dates, we have made sure that there is no massive movement of students during the examinations. The examinations for SC and HSC will start full-fledged from the 12th of April. And earlier, that is from the 30th to the 8th of April, there are only few candidates for SC and HSC who will be going for exams. So we hope that nothing happens, but then we are sure that the number of students that will be circulating during those days are manageable.
Honourable Minister, I have one concern. I know the personnel of the MES will take that into consideration regarding days when we have two papers, when students have finished the first paper and waiting for the second paper to get into the examination room, because we know kids are kids after all, so that all measures are taken so that they don't group together in between two papers.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I've just mentioned that students will be constantly reminded of the need for social distancing, and special rooms will be made available for students to remain in prior to getting to the next session under the supervision of an invigilator. However, we do understand that students will need to be constantly reminded of this need and will have to be supervised.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Just to come back to the question, the last question of my colleague, Mr. Ganga Prasad, since I've been given to understand that on some days there are going to be two papers that are going to be sets for the students. Now, given that most of the schools and colleges are regionalized, and the students, they reside near to these schools, will they be allowed at least to go back home during the recess, freshen up, and make use of toilet facilities if need be, then come back? And this is going to prevent overcrowding during the recess time.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we do not normally advise students to leave the examination centers during examinations. But as I've stated earlier, that parents can come and drop their children at school and pick them up. I would rather have students remaining within the school compound or in the cars in the time they have to wait before getting into the other examination, but it is not advisable for students to leave the exam centers for various reasons. But then, in case a parent is there and wants to, let's say, for example, has brought the lunch of a student, I think the student can get into the car and have the food. But we will not allow parents to group up or to assemble in the schoolyards. They'll have to be outside the schoolyard. But I would not advise students to go back home between exams.
Last supplementary, Honorable Abiamian.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. The Honourable Minister announced that for certain grades, that there will be no final examination and there will be automatic promotion for certain grades. And recently it appeared in the press that some schools are contemplating to have examination before those students can move to classes. I think it was in the private school, but I'm not sure whether it also applies to government school. Can the Honourable Minister please clarify on this issue?
We have had no such complaints from students, but I must say what we have been saying to schools and to rectors is to allow students to get promoted to the next year. But obviously we had also underlined that in case a student is facing a lot of difficulty and has not been working to the requirements of the school during the year, that child may, on the request of parents or teachers, be retained in a class. But by no means we've been asking schools to carry out tests at this point in time.
Next question, Honorable Ganga Prasad.
B18.
It's B17, I presume. Withdraw?
Next question.
B18. Mr. Speaker, sir, according to information submitted by the Mauritius Examination Syndicate, details pertaining to supervisors, coordinators, and invigilators are as follows. For the PSAC assessment, the number of persons required, the number of coordinators required is 74. The number of persons who have applied, 96. None have declined. Invigilators, number of persons required, 3,008. Number of persons applied, who have applied, 3,750. 25 have declined and have been replaced. For the NC assessment, the number of supervisors required, 365. The number of persons who have applied for that post, 1,000. Number of persons who have declined, 50. And they have been replaced. Coordinators, number of persons required, 78. Number of persons who have applied, 300. 40 have declined and have been replaced. Invigilators, 1,800 persons required. Number of persons who have applied, 5,005. None have declined. For SC and HSC examinations, number of supervisors, 225 required. Number of persons who have applied for that post, 1,677. Number of persons who have declined, 58. Coordinators, 83 required. 183 people applied, and 3 persons declined. Invigilators, 3,560 required. Number of persons who have applied, 4,500. 350 had declined and have been replaced. Mr. Speaker, sir, it's customary that a number of officers, after having applied to work for examinations, happen to subsequently decline the offer. The MES, however, manages to readily replace them from a backup pool. I would also wish to inform the House that arrangements have been made for all examination personnel to be vaccinated.
Honourable Minister, my main concern is that because of this pandemic, we need additional number of classrooms where exams will be conducted. And in that respect, we will need more invigilators to manage the exam. Has this been taken care of?
Mr. Speaker, sir, while answering to the previous question, I had mentioned that we are following strict sanitary measures, and one of the requirements is to have the students placed 1 meter apart. Bearing this in mind and considering the number of students we have and the space provided in each school, the MES has done the needful.
I again would like to insist on this fact that allowing students in and out of the red zone to take the different exams, as well as the different personnel, is quite risky, Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the arrangements made by the Ministry of Land Transport is such that students moving from one zone to the other go in a bus, and the bus remains there and takes the students back to the place from where they have been picked. So this will reduce the risk or eliminate the risk of their meeting others, etc. And especially when we consider all the sanitary measures that have been adopted at the level of the exam centres, I believe that the risks have been enormously minimized.
There is one reassurance that some of those who have declined to work during this pandemic, there is one reassurance that they want is that they would not be penalized subsequently because they couldn't work during the pandemic, so that next year and the year after, they are not penalized on the basis that they refused to work during the pandemic.
Mr. Speaker, sir, this has to be tackled by the MES. I do understand that in a pandemic condition, people may have very valid reasons not to be able to attend their work or to be present in the exam centres, but I will leave it to the Mauritius Examination Syndicate to consider its list of exam personnel.
Last question.
I think it is our duty here, everyone's duty, to reassure all the kids and to say all the best to all the personnel, especially the MES, who are working in very difficult circumstances, and we wish all the kids all the best for the exams.
I thank you for the concern expressed.
Next question.
B19.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to thank the Honourable Member for this question, which gives me the opportunity to apprise the House on the new work culture that is gradually gaining momentum in Mauritius in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, that is the work-from-home culture. COVID-19 pandemic has drastically altered the world of work and ushered rapidly in the culture of work from home, among others, as a means to mitigate the transmission of this deadly virus among the population. This paradigm shift from the traditional pattern of work poses new challenges and constraints for millions of public officers across the globe, some of whom are actively engaged in the fight against COVID-19, while others are involved in continuing the normal work of government. As the crisis continues to evolve, public administration must take bold measures to help public officials perform their duties as effectively as possible. Government introduced in May 2020 the work-from-home scheme on a pilot basis in the public sector in response to the COVID-19 and with a view to ensuring business continuity. I am informed that as at now, 1,724 public officers in 29 ministries and departments are working from home, as compared to 220 officers last year. These officers have been provided with appropriate IT equipment and paid a monthly cell phone and internet allowances. I am tabling the list of ministries concerned, along with a number of officers working from home. The UNDP Mauritius Country Office is currently financing a consultancy service for my ministry for the establishment of a business continuity plan model that could be activated in case of a total lockdown. The consultancy has been entrusted to PricewaterhouseCoopers Limited. One of the deliverables of the consultancy is to propose an acceptable working arrangement, flexible working hours, and a work-from-home protocol for consideration by government. The consultant has, on the basis of the outcome of a survey carried out by my ministry in November 2020 on the work-from-home scheme, submitted a comprehensive work-from-home protocol for the public sector on 15 March 2021 to ensure business continuity and agility in public service delivery in times of crisis. The salient features of the protocol are as follows. First, introduction of flexible and agile working policies that balances the needs of government and public officers. Second, all public officers should discuss the working arrangement with the head of department, division, section, and the latter should take every possible step to facilitate the process. Third, the protocol is applicable to all public officers and does not change or replace the existing terms and conditions of employment. Fourth, the protocol makes provision for officers with caring responsibilities and disabilities to be provided with additional flexible working options, such as revised work target or flexible working hours. Fifth, the protocol set out clear criteria to be used for assessing and approving application for work from home, monitoring progress, and evaluating performance. One of the main criteria for qualifying an officer for work from home is a minimum of 3 hours per day for the task assigned. Six, the policies of the government, including the terms and conditions of employment and policies to safety and health, data protection, and security will apply during a work-from-home arrangement. And 7, public institutions should procure laptops with appropriate software and other equipment required for employees. There is a need to transition from desktop PCs to laptops in a phased manner. Mr. Speaker, sir, the work-from-home protocol also makes a provision for the setting up of a steering committee under the chair of the Secretary for Public Service to drive the implementation of the work-from-home mode of work across the public sector. Government adopted the work-from-home protocol on 19 March 2021, and the appropriate mechanism is currently being put in place to implement the protocol across the public sector. As regards part B of the question, Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that so far the need for a special training on the work from home has not been felt, as officers have been called upon to perform tasks that they normally perform at office. However, as recommended in the protocol, an awareness program will be conducted across all levels of public officers to sensitize them on the benefits of this new pattern of work. Moreover, the steering committee will look into any specific training needs that public officers may require in the course of implementation of the protocol, and the Civil Service College Mauritius will be approached to include a slot in all its courses and also mount specific courses on work from home. Mr. Speaker, sir, my ministry is leaving no stone unturned in encouraging public organizations to adopt the work-from-home culture. A circular letter was issued by my ministry last week to this effect.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. I think work from home is inevitable, and it is good that you have listed the protocol. In spite of that, some trade unionists have raised concern regarding the disorderly and chaotic manner in which it is being done. I am bringing it to your attention so that needful can be done. For example, they have complained that many supervisors are harassing workers, are disturbing the family life of officers, and many officers, fortunately you have mentioned it, many officers have been asked to use their personal equipment, but you have just mentioned it. Perhaps in the days to come they are going to be equipped.
Question.
So look into that.
I thank the honourable member for his suggestion. In fact, as a protocol have been approved last week by the government, and it's yesterday that my ministry has issued another circular letter to inform all ministries and departments to adhere to all those protocols that has been circulated to them.
There has been concern among public officers that the performance management system, which is in place, does not cater for the work from home culture. And this is why there is a request that since it is mid performance management review, it is important that this performance management system be reviewed. With the Minister, please give a reassurance that this is reviewed in the earliest delay.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir, in the protocol it is mentioned that there should be a progress reporting report, and also upon completion of the work from home arrangement, there is an evaluation form that need to be completed by the supervising officer and also have to be completed by the public officer. And through this, we can see the key performance indicators that has been set out by ministries, and based on this, they can evaluate the performance of those public officers.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Will the Honourable Minister consider reintroducing flexi-time within this work-from-home protocol within the public sector?
Yes, I already mentioned that there is the possibility of flexi-time, but only to those public officers who have the disabilities or who is not being able, so there is health problems. But in fact, we can look forward. It is already mentioned in the protocol of the work from home.
Minister to table the protocol?
Yes, it is. I am leading to the National Assembly.
Next question.
Yeah. B20.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with your permission, I'm tabling the list of companies which had been awarded contracts for the supply of face masks and other medical supplies and equipment by the STC and the Ministry of Commerce and Consumer Protection during COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am informed that the ICAC has started an investigation which is still ongoing, and by virtue of Section 81(3) of the Prevention of Corruption Act. Unfortunately, I cannot disclose any further information for the time being.
Supplementary, Mr. Speaker. It is known by the public by now that there has been a mafia operating at the State Trading Corporation and in connivance with the Ministry of Commerce and even...
No, I will not allow this sort of language. Mafia in connivance with the minister, this is accusation. Reframe your question, please.
I rephrase, but there has been connivance. Connivance is not...
No, I'm not talking of connivance. Connivance with the minister.
No, I've not mentioned the ministry, I've said. From the ministry. It's STC and the ministry, I've said.
Okay, if it is the ministry, you may proceed.
This is why I'm asking the minister, since he has stated that he will you will clear up the air at STC, use crash air if possible, whether he has started inquiry and has cleared the air at the STC and the ministry.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with due respect to the honourable member, I've stated it and I'm stating it again. There is an inquiry which is ongoing, and it will be for the inquiry to determine whether there has been mal done or not, and not me to come and say such thing. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, regarding the advance payment that was done, can I find out from the Minister whether there has been an advance payment guarantee and a performance bond that was issued by the company prior to the disbursement of the fund?
Unfortunately, I cannot answer this question because, Mr. Speaker, sir, listen to me first. By way of search warrant, the ICAC has seized original documents at the STC, be it at the STC, at the Ministry of Commerce, and computer devices also. So I'm not in presence of these informations.
Also, it is common practice, especially concerning emergency procurement, to do advance payment. And has this been done in the past?
I cannot answer this question, unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Honourable Chaki Mohammed.
Speaker, sir, I am not going to ask the Honourable Minister, obviously, about issues pertaining to the inquiry at ICAC, and I totally understand him there. However, could you please inform the House whether any members of the board at the particular time when those transactions took place, have they been suspended? And if they have not been suspended, why not?
Well, none of the board members have been suspended as yet, because whatever procurement exercise happened, it was during confinement, they were at their home, and they took decision by way of circularized resolution.
Last supplementary, Honourable Bhagwan.
I have two, sir. You have given chance to other people, to other members. I have two. Can the Minister inform the House whether the chairperson of the STC, Mr. Dr. Binik, is still in office? He is a political appointee, whether it is the Minister is contemplating to replace the chairperson of the STC, who have been party concerned to all, I would say, unscrupulous behavior of certain people at the STC and the ministry.
All the members of the board, including the chairman, are still in office.
I allow.
And the minister from the House, whether who records, he is a member of cabinet also, whether the then minister gave his approval for the go-ahead of all these purchases and even advance payment, more than 300, 400 million rupees were given to that company, whether ministerial approval was given, if yes, when?
ICAC is investigating to the matter, and as soon as the inquiry is complete, surely you will know of the outcome as it will be in the public domain.
Next question.
B21.
Mr. Speaker, sir, regarding Part A, following the current lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic, arrangements have been made by my ministry to allow registered fishers to carry out fishing activities. The first communique was issued on 11th March 2021, including the time of operation and equally to follow the general rule of alphabetical order to limit the number of fishers operating at landing station to enable observing all sanitary measures. The communique was also made for applicant fishers. Mr. Speaker, sir, after consultation with the National Coast Guard and the Mauritius Police Department, a monitoring plan was approved, following which my ministry issued another communique on 19th March 2021 with detailed information for registered fishers, applicant fishers, fishmongers, and ornamental live fish, means aquarium shops. The condition of alphabetical order had been waived, thus allowing both registered fishers and applicant fishers to operate on a daily basis from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., except on public holidays and Sundays. Registered fishers must be in possession of their respective fishermen cards, and applicant fishers must have a memo from the fisheries post in their locality. The operation is being closely monitored by the Fisheries Protection Service of my ministry, the National Coast Guard, and the Mauritius Police Force. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regards Part B in respect of the notification made to Fisheries Post as at 19th March 2021, the information is being compiled and same will be placed in the Library of the National Assembly. Regarding the registered fishers, the activities are being monitored at fish landing station by officers of the Fisheries Protection Service and National Coast Guard. Mr. Speaker, sir, regarding Part C, as a carrying government, I'm pleased to announce that my ministry will provide financial assistance based on bad weather allowance to eligible registered fishers to compensate non-fishing days for the period 11 to 19 March 2021, excluding Sunday and public holidays. As regards the applicants for fishermen card, they may apply to the MRA under the Self-Employed Assistance Scheme.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai été rassuré de constater un certain bon sens retrouvé dans le communiqué du ministère de la Pêche en date du 19 mars 2021, venu supprimer la surréaliste sortie par ordre alphabétique demandée aux pêcheurs par le communiqué du 11 mars 2021. Juste pour m'assurer, parce que nombreux sont les pêcheurs qui nous regardent, Monsieur le Ministre, entre ces deux dates, il y a eu 6 jours de pêche, en excluant le jour férié du 12 mars et le dimanche 14 mars, et certains pêcheurs n'ont pu sortir pêcher qu'un jour ou deux. Le ministre peut-il bien confirmer que les jours non travaillés pendant cette période donneront droit à une compensation pour les pêcheurs, et si oui, sur quelle base financière?
As I mentioned, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm pleased to announce that my ministry will provide financial assistance based on the bad weather for those non-working, non-fishing days. Ils vont être payés.
Thank you. Last year, in parliamentary question B309, addressed to the then Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Boida, it was question of a sum of 6.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was a question of $6 million USD from Saudi Arabia, made for mosque, refurbishment of mosque, and to the fisher community. In the same reply, the minister had said that the draft memorandum was forwarded to you, Honorable Minister, and for you to bring onward to Cabinet for fishers to benefit from that money. Can I ask from the Honorable Minister the status on this fund donated by Saudi Arabia, made for the fisher community?
No, the agreement has not been signed yet. I prefer to await for this. After the signature, I will pronounce on that.
Monsieur le Président, le nouveau communiqué du 19 mars 2021 a repris les mêmes horaires autorisés de pêche, à savoir de 6 heures du matin à 6 heures du soir. Or, ceux qui portent attention au dur métier de la pêche savent que pour la pêche en haute mer, et notamment pour certains poissons comme le thon ou la dorade, et j'imagine que ces poissons n'ont pas lu le communiqué du ministère de la Pêche, les pêcheurs doivent prendre la mer aux alentours de 4 heures du matin. Puis-je demander au ministre s'il est disposé à revoir le créneau horaire autorisé du matin en conséquence?
Monsieur le Président, I will look into definitely, but first of all, we must ensure that the COVID protocol are observed. This is a main issue. We have to put the officers over there, and the fisheries protection officer, I must talk to them and if it's possible or not. Into this possibility, I can't say now.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just in case there's an extension of the lockdown period, can the Minister ensure the House that the same protocol will be observed by the fishermen, and that in case they're not able to go fishing, he will still give the compensation to the fishermen? And if he can please communicate to the House the quantum of the compensation he mentioned earlier, the sum. He never mentioned the sum, and he said it's an allowance.
No, I just mentioned we'll stay with the bad weather, which is a 425 rupees. This is it.
Next question.
B22.
I can hear some noise somewhere.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I've been informed that on Friday, 5th March 2021, at 1:42 hours, the Chinese flag fishing vessel Lurong Yuan Yu 588 entered into the exclusive economic zone of Mauritius for a call to Port Louis Harbour for bunkering and provisions after obtaining the necessary clearances from the Mauritius Port Authority and the Ministry of Health and Wellness. The movement of the vessel was being monitored by the National Coast Guard Operation Room through the Suivez automatic identification system, which is commonly known as the AIS. On Sunday, 7th March at 4:14 hours, the vessel entered into our territorial waters to sail toward the port area. At 6:10 hours, it entered the port limits. Mr. Speaker, sir, I have further been informed that on 7 March 2021 at 17:21 hours, the National Coast Guard Operations Room received a phone call from the Port Louis Harbour radio to the effect that the vessel with 16 crew members on board run aground on the reef of Pointe Sable. Immediately after receiving the call, the National Coast Guard Operations Room contacted the National Coast Guard Harbour Security, which is the nearest unit to the scene of the incident, for assistance. The acting port master, the MPA Port Emergency Services, and the port security unit were mobilized. Tug Ionian Seaforce was requested to proceed to the casualty site to provide assistance. As regards Port B, I have been informed that the fishing vessel Lurong Yuan Yu 588 has no fishing license to operate in the exclusive economic zone of Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, regarding Part C, I am informed that a team consisting of officers from the police force, shipping division, and Polieco boarded the fishing vessel Lurong Yuan Yu 588 by police helicopter during the afternoon on 8 March 2021, and a first assessment of the condition of the vessel was made. On 9 March 2021, Captain Hubert Noël, Principal Nautical Surveyor of the Shipping Division, was formally appointed to hold a preliminary inquiry into the circumstances that led to the grounding of the fishing vessel, in line with Section 10(1) of the Merchant Shipping Act. The Director of Shipping has detained the fishing vessel in the port. I am also informed by the Director of Shipping that all documents of the vessel have been secured. The preliminary inquiry is underway, but with the COVID-19 situation, there might be some little delay in the process. The first conclusion of the preliminary inquiry can only be reached after the completion of interviews of the crew members, which are being awaited due to the COVID-19 protocols, the national lockdown, and the need for translators as the crew members of different nationalities, namely Chinese, Indonesian, and Philippines. An ecological survey is being also carried out by officers of my ministry for an assessment of the damages which might have been caused by the grounding of the vessels. Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to draw the attention of the House that my ministry and all other authorities have promptly reacted to the casualty at Pointe Sable, and no oil spill has occurred, and the salvage operation was a success. I also seize the opportunity to thank the officers of my ministry, including the Fisheries Protection Officer, the Shipping Division, the Mauritius Oceanography Institute, and all stakeholders, including the MPA, the National Coast Guards, the Mauritius Police Department, the Ministry of Environment, Polieco, and the inhabitants and fishers of Pointe Sable. I also wish to express my appreciation to the Lord Mayor, Honorable PPS Doreen Chakauri, Honorable Patrice Hamas, Honorable Fabrice David, for their positive attitude during this successful salvage operation.
David.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre. Mr. Speaker, sir, the procedures to nominate a vessel with the port authorities are that full documentation reaches the latter at least 48 hours prior to a vessel's expected time of arrival. And one main document is the notice of arrival. I downloaded a template of this document from the Mauritius Port Authority's website. Can the Honourable Minister table the notice of arrival received by the port master and the harbour radio for the vessel Lurong Yuan Yu 588?
I don't have the document right now, but I will check with the MPA if this can be done.
Can I ask the Honourable Minister, in line with the Fisheries and Marine Resources Act, did the fishing vessel at any stage send a letter, fax or email to the Permanent Secretary, to your Permanent Secretary, at least 24 hours before the boat or vessel entered or exited the maritime zone, with details about the quantity of fish on board, and whether that same vessel, at least 72 hours, did send a letter, fax or email to the Permanent Secretary to inform the latter of the purposes of its call into the port, because you did say that it had entered the port area, and was a copy of the vessel or boat's authorization to fish or information on the quantity of fish on board given. If this was given, could you please table the document?
I can table, but as I said in my reply, Mr. Speaker, sir, that this fishing vessel Lurong has no fishing license to operate in the EZ or Mauritius, and he hasn't even applied. In fact, this vessel called at the port for bunkering and provisions. I'm informed about that.
Suite à une étude bathymétrique qui avait été réalisée l'an dernier dans le cadre du démantèlement du Ouattacachio, nous avions tristement constaté la mort de plusieurs dizaines de cétacés, et plusieurs experts s'accordent à dire que cet exercice peut déstabiliser les cétacés. Pourrait-on savoir si dans le présent cas, une étude bathymétrique aurait été réalisée et si le ministère aurait fait un quelconque suivi et aurait constaté la mort de cétacés?
No bathymetric has been done this time, and we have no information as to any death of any species.
I understand from the minister that there is an ongoing investigation, and he mentioned there are many documents that have been secured. May I know from him whether the list of documents, the vessel video, the port risk port control logbook, the National Coast Guard Operation Book, whether those documents have been secured, and most important, where are the seamen at time you're answering the question now?
The crew of the Lurong, they are all in a sister vessel belonging to the company in the port areas. And about the documents, I think the inquiring officer, Mr. Noel, they have secured all the necessary documents.
Last supplementary.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai pris le soin d'étudier les Daily Port Situations, disponibles encore une fois sur le site web de la MPA, pour les dates du 3, 4, 5 et 8 mars 2021. Je rappelle que le bateau dont nous parlons s'est échoué à Pointe-Sable le 7 mars. Or, dans ces rapports quotidiens portuaires, le Lurong Yu 588 n'apparaît nulle part dans la liste des bateaux attendus, contrairement à son sister ship, le Lurong Yu 599, qui lui est arrivé au port le 3 mars. Le Yu 588 n'apparaît que sur le rapport du 8 mars, dans la liste des bateaux arrivés. En fait, il avait même déjà échoué. Le ministre peut-il éclairer la Chambre sur cette surprenante absence dans les rapports portuaires?
No, I don't have, I've given all the information that I've been informed, but this is news to me. I will look into this.
Next question.
B23.
Speaker, sir, I have already earlier answered 2 questions related to this, this subject in regard to ABC.
You finish?
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Donc, concernant les vaccins Covaxin, Sinopharm, Sinovac, Sputnik, nous le savons tous, ils sont toujours au stade de phase 3 d'essais cliniques et ne sont toujours pas validés par l'OMS. De ce fait, l'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire si son ministère, malgré tout, a sollicité l'expertise, les recommandations de l'OMS à travers son représentant qui est basé à Maurice? Si oui, peut-on savoir quelles ont été les réactions, les recommandations de l'OMS? Sinon, pourquoi cela n'a pas été fait?
Thank you, Honourable Member. Yes, I would say the Ministry is constantly in touch with the WHO representative in Mauritius. In fact, he's participating in all the high-level committees, and he's giving us the latest news that has been happening in the WHO concerning the vaccines. So far, what we have received from the WHO, that the vaccines all are in the process to be validated in the coming weeks.
The several vaccines that are being purchased by your ministry, by government, can I ask the Honourable Minister how the procurement process is being done? Is it being purchased by your ministry directly with the suppliers, the government in Europe, or be it anywhere, or is it being, the purchases, is it being routed through intermediaries?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I've already given the reply to this question in detail, how are all the purchases that have been done, and I don't think I have to repeat it again.
Mr. Speaker, this morning the Honourable Minister mentioned about the vaccination committee that gave the approval for the vaccine. May I know from him who are the experts, their names and their qualifications that sit on his board that took the decision to approve this vaccine while the OMS has not done so?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. I will start by the chairperson being Dr. Z.J. He's a senior advisor. Dr. VP, he's a chairperson of Monitag. Monitag is again in the Ministry of Health to look for vaccination. Dr. VD, Director Health Services for Public Health. Dr. SM, Director of Laboratory Services. Dr. PL, Consultant in Charge, Internal Medicine. Dr. TRJ, Chairperson, Pharmacovigilance Committee. Dr. DCN, Specialist in Infectious Diseases. Dr. MK, Regional Public Health Superintendent, CDCU. Dr. S. Ayer, Deputy Permanent Secretary, and the technical officers.
Last supplementary, Honourable Kirin.
Two more, Mr. President.
No, you cannot choose.
Yeah, no, I won't be able to choose. Both are important. Please, please, please. Yeah. Monsieur le Président, le Dr Jumai, président du National Vaccination Committee, est venu affirmer à la télévision nationale que le vaccin Covaxin est efficace contre certains variants brésiliens, anglais, sud-africains de la Covid-19. L'honorable ministre peut-il nous dire sur quoi cette affirmation est basée? Est-ce qu'il partage l'avis du Dr Jumai? Si tel est le cas, de bien vouloir déposer les documents y relatifs.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I have PQ related to this question. I'll be replying at a later stage. But, I wish to inform the House, we are in a stage where we need vaccination to protect our population. And in this stage, all countries are doing the same procedures. They have to...
Former leader of the opposition. Former leader of the
Again, Mr. Speaker, sir, all countries are adopting the same strategies and the same procedures concerning procurement of vaccination, planification for vaccination, and administration of vaccination.
Next question.
Monsieur le Président, j'ai une dernière
question. Next question. No. I have allowed 4 supplementary. You cannot take all the supplementary. There are many questions left.
Only 2.
Help me. Help me. You have another question.
What's the third one?
Put your question. You have another question. B.
I have a third one. Last one. Very important one, please. You have given 3 questions to all.
You want to shout?
I'm not shouting. I'm just telling you.
Respect the chair.
I'll respect you.
It's ruling. The ruling is that.
B24.
That's it.
Mr. Speaker, sir, while the COVID-19 vaccines are not mandatory in Mauritius, athletes proceeding overseas to attend international competitions are highly encouraged to do so and will have at all times to abide strictly to the sanitary rules and regulations of the host country.
Remember?
Président. Peut-on savoir de l'honorable ministre si un athlète, pour des raisons de santé ou autres, refuse de se faire vacciner, aura-t-il le droit de voyager et représenter le pays à des compétitions internationales?
Monsieur le Président, je l'ai dit dans ma réponse, nous allons devoir respecter ce que les pays organisateurs vont mettre comme règlement. Donc, si les règlements sont de se faire vacciner, ben, malheureusement, un athlète qui ne peut pas se faire vacciner pour des raisons de santé ben, ne pourra pas participer. Mais tout ça, ce sont des suppositions. Il faudra attendre les compétitions internationales.
Honourable Two.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Can the Honourable Minister advise if sports federations have requested vaccination for their athletes? If yes, which ones?
Oui, Monsieur le Président, il y a certaines fédérations qui ont déjà signifié leur intention de faire vacciner leurs athlètes, les entraîneurs, aussi bien que le personnel. Alors, par exemple, donc, il y a le Mauritius Football Association qui a fait une demande officielle au ministère. Le Shotokan Martial Arts Federation aussi a fait une demande. La Fédération mauricienne de cyclisme, bien avant le lockdown, avait déjà fait une demande de vaccin parce qu'il prévoit certaines compétitions internationales. Et je présume qu'il y aura bien sûr sûrement d'autres fédérations qui vont venir de l'avant et faire des demandes de vaccination pour leurs athlètes.
Président, peut-on savoir de l'honorable ministre ce qu'il peut nous informer par rapport aux athlètes qui partent dans des compétitions internationales à leur retour, même s'ils sont vaccinés, est-ce qu'ils sont dans l'obligation à leur retour de faire la quarantaine? Et si oui, qui en fera les frais?
Monsieur le Président, il y a le National High Level Committee on COVID qui prenne toutes les décisions. Ceci n'est pas de mon ressort. Bien sûr, athlète ou autre personne rentrant dans le pays aura besoin de respecter les critères et les règlements.
Another one?
Oui, monsieur le Président. Peut-on savoir de l'honorable ministre, je sais que la vaccination des athlètes qui vont participer, qui sont présélectionnés pour les JO, ont déjà commencé. Est-ce qu'on peut savoir s'il y a eu un time frame par rapport aux autres disciplines? Ils viennent de le dire qu'il y a certaines disciplines qui ont déjà, mais est-ce qu'il y a eu un délai qui a été accordé à tous les sportifs, à toutes les fédérations, afin que leurs athlètes soient vaccinés?
Monsieur le Président, ce que nous sommes en train de faire au sein du ministère, c'est de rassembler toutes les informations concernant les fédérations qui demandent à se faire vacciner. Et ceci implique beaucoup de personnes. Donc, nous sommes en train de faire un exercice d'abord, de voir combien de personnes cela va impliquer. Et, bien sûr, nous allons faire la demande au High Level Committee on COVID-19 qui vont, bien sûr, nous guider. Et il y va de soi que ceux qui ont des compétitions urgentes à aller faire, bien sûr, on va demander qu'ils soient vaccinés en priorité.
Last supplementary.
Yes, thank you, Speaker, sir. We are talking about international competitions where high level of performance is required. Can I ask the Honourable Minister whether his ministry has given thought to that aspect of things, insofar as the type of vaccine is being envisaged and the time frame they will have to get vaccinated, because when they arrive overseas, it doesn't affect their performance, if at all there is an issue there.
Monsieur le Président, c'est très prématuré comme question, et puis de toutes les façons, ce sont les responsables de la santé qui vont devoir nous guider par rapport au vaccin. Est-ce que cela va affecter leur performance, tout ça. Nous sommes aussi en contact avec le World Anti-Doping Organization pour nous guider dans ce sens. Et bien sûr, nous allons prendre tout cela en considération.
Next question.
B25.
Mr. Speaker, sir, presently there are 16 ambassadors, high commissioners, who are posted in our diplomatic missions abroad. They are Mr. Besgit posted at Addis Ababa, His Excellency Mr. Besgit, Her Excellency Mrs. Labelle at Antananarivo, His Excellency Mr. Wong Yang Chong at Beijing, His Excellency Mr. Ghanisi at Brussels, His Excellency Mr. Goberdon at Cairo, Her Excellency Mrs. Monti at Canberra, Her Excellency Mrs. Kanabadi at Geneva, His Excellency Mr. Subada at Islamabad, His Excellency Mr. Goberdon at KL, Kuala Lumpur, Mr. Nanku, His Excellency Mr. Nanku at London, His Excellency Mr. Juman at Maputo, His Excellency Mr. Janki at Moscow, His Excellency, Her Excellency Mrs. Anumanji at New Delhi, and His Excellency Mr. Kunjal at New York, His Excellency Mr. Valaidung at Paris, and His Excellency Mr. Lachman at Pretoria. Two ambassadors, Mr. Speaker, sir, have not yet assumed their post in their respective country of posting, and arrangements are being made for them to proceed accordingly. They are His Excellency Mr. Jagu to be posted at Washington, and Her Excellency Ms. Sohan to be posted at Berlin. In addition, the following two Korean ambassadors are currently posted at the headquarters. Ambassador Mr. Dillam, appointed as Secretary for Foreign Affairs since the 10th of August 2020, and His Excellency Mr. Manga, Ambassador since the 13th of August 2018. In addition, Mr. Speaker, we have one roving ambassador who is based in Mauritius, His Excellency Mr. Shaukat Ali Sudan, and is accredited to the United Arab Emirates, the State of Kuwait, and the Kingdom of Bahrain since the 25th January 2021. Ambassador Mr. Sudan was previously accredited to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia with residence in Riyadh from 7 January 2020 to 24 January 2021. He was also accredited as non-resident ambassador to the following countries: United Arab Emirates, the State of Kuwait, and the Kingdom of Bahrain.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci pour le ministre pour la liste des ambassadeurs et qui ne répond pas à ma question. Est-ce qu'on peut savoir du ministre si l'ambassadeur Soudan est déclaré persona non grata aux Émirats arabes unis?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I leave it to the honourable member to take responsibility for the statement he's making.
Le ministre ne répond pas à la question, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, ok. Monsieur le Président, nous savons tous que les ambassadeurs, la place d'un ambassadeur se trouve à l'ambassade où il est posté. Malheureusement, ici à l'île Maurice, nous voyons qu'il n'y a pas que Monsieur Soudan, il y a aussi l'ambassadrice Maya Noumanji de l'Inde qui se trouvait à l'île Maurice. Peut-on savoir du ministre si quand les ambassadeurs sont en vacances ici pendant des mois et des mois, est-ce qu'ils sont payés de leur salaire des privilèges ou avec voiture avec chauffeur? On peut le savoir?
Mr. Speaker, sir, just to remind the honourable member that in the past, Mrs. Takbusat Sidaya, Mr. Azad Duman, and Mrs. Rusti have also served as non-resident ambassador, roving ambassadors under different governments. In fact, Mrs. Rusti was appointed as non-resident ambassador for a period of 3 years with residence in Mauritius to the Republic of Seychelles as from the 3rd of August 2012. Mrs. Indira Sabitri Taku Sidaya was roving ambassador for Africa with residence in Mauritius from July 2012 prior to being posted to our mission in Moscow on 13 June 2013. Now, with regard to the benefits and privileges, Mr. Speaker, sir, Ambassador Shaukat Ali Sudan is being granted the benefits and privileges in line with the recommendations of the PRB report of 2016 and is entitled to a series of benefits and privileges according to what has been provided for, as I said, in the PRB report.
Honorable Tim.
Did I correctly hear the Honourable Minister say that we currently do not have any ambassador in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia since Mr. Sudan returned to Mauritius? And if this is the case, may I know from the Honourable Minister whether the post is going to be filled and what is the time frame for filling that post?
Well, as I said, Mr. Speaker, sir, Mr. Sudan is based in Mauritius, but he is accredited to the United Arab Emirates, the State of Kuwait, and the Kingdom of Bahrain. And before taking residence here, he was previously accredited to these 3 countries. This is what I said in my answer.
How many questions you have? One. Just wait. Honorable Nyao.
Can I also reply to the question concerning Mrs. Anumanji, Mr. Speaker, sir, since it has been raised by Honorable Ashiavaden? In fact, Mrs. Anumanji came to Mauritius on the 25th of August on medical leave for her personal medical treatment. She resumed duty at the High Commission of Delhi on the 11th of January 2021, Mr. Speaker, sir. So she came here for personal medical treatment.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we just, the Minister just informed the House that Mr. Sudan is no longer the ambassador in Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. May we know what exactly happened so that Mr. Sudan is no more the ambassador of Mauritius in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia? The more so, we know his close relationship with the royal family.
The honourable member comes with a substantive question. I will be pleased to reply to this question.
Last supplementary question.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, nous savons tous, Monsieur le Président, et vous le savez encore mieux que quiconque, Monsieur le Président, qu'un ambassadeur a le devoir de retenue. Nous avons tous écouté le now roving ambassadeur, l'ambassadeur Soudan, à la radio, en ligne, dans des commentaires politiques, dans des émissions politiques tenant des reproches, des critiques à l'encontre de l'opposition, flattant le gouvernement. Est-ce que le gouvernement, est-ce que le ministre trouve-t-il normal qu'un ambassadeur digne de ce nom se permet de tenir des langages contre les opposants politiques dans le contexte actuel? Et M. Soudan l'a fait sur la radio à plusieurs reprises. Est-ce normal? Est-ce qu'il sera rappelé à l'ordre?
I suppose the way to answer this question, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that Ambassador Sudan is entitled to his political opinion.
Next question. Next question. Former leader of the opposition, what is happening to you? Where's your right? Where's your right? Now you stop fighting me. You stop fighting me. You don't have the floor. You don't have the floor. You're shouting and you're fighting me.
B26.
Mr. Speaker, sir, Mauritius is having to face a national confinement for the 2nd time. The whole commercial and industrial sector were caught by surprise. However, we are this time guided by the experience we acquired last year so as to ensure that consumers have access to food products and other basic necessities. The officers of my ministry and the Mauritius Chambers of Commerce and Industry have been working together in order to ensure that there is an adequate supply of essential commodities on the market. In order to ensure a regular supply of food and essential commodities to the population, all distributors and supermarkets have been classified as essential services. This government has given priority and fast-tracked work access permits for supermarkets, distributors, and specialized logistics organizations. Within the 2nd day of the national confinement, all supermarkets were open and implementing all shopping guidelines, including the alphabetical order for shopping and ensuring enforcement of all safety measures. All supermarkets and hypermarkets have been operating as per their normal working hours and have been allowed to start operation as from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. This decision has helped prevent long queues and ensure that consumers shop at their own convenience. The officers of the Consumer Affairs Unit of my ministry are ensuring that distributors are providing regular supplies of goods throughout the island. For constituency number 15, 16, and 17, deliveries being done as per days and time allowed by the police for delivery in the red zone. The police and the private sector are fully collaborating so as to ensure an adequate supply of basic necessities in strict adherence with sanitary protocols. All supermarkets have been requested to take necessary measures to ensure that stocks of basic commodities are regularly replenished. Following consultation with my ministry, supermarkets have maintained all their current promotions, which were planned before the national confinement. The price fixing unit of my ministry, which is fully operational on a work from home basis since a year, ensures that prices of controlled products continue to be fixed. This government introduced the price fixing information system, which is an online platform whereby importers and traders can submit costing online on a 24/7 basis. I am pleased to announce that during this crucial period, my officers have provided a 24/7 support to importers. There are regular checks by the officers of my ministry in hypermarkets, supermarkets, superates, and retail shops to ensure that prices of goods are properly affixed and that there is no abuse on goods and that are subject to price control.
Merci, Monsieur le ministre. Je reconnais, Monsieur le Président, que l'inspectorat du ministère du Commerce, dans ce confinement actuel, sévit à travers le pays. Mais le ministre a sûrement lui aussi vu, et nous avons constaté, Monsieur le ministre, que juste après le lockdown, ce présent lockdown, comment certains commerçants, ont commencé à faire des abus sur la tête des consommateurs mauriciens. À titre d'exemple, vous l'avez sûrement vu, certains légumes se vendaient et se vendent à des prix scandaleux. Est-ce qu'on peut savoir, Monsieur le ministre, quelles ont été les actions prises concernant ces états de choses?
Well, there have been regular visits to different commerce across the island. I must say that between the 7th of March to between the 7th to the 20th of March, 1,652 trade premises have been visited by the officers of my ministry. And we have also thrown 533 contraventions. We have put also a hotline at the disposition of the general public, that is 185, so that they can report any case of abuse.
Can the Honourable Minister inform the House whether his ministry has a prior list monitoring liberalized on consumer products so to avoid undue price rise?
Yes, we do monitor prices on a regular basis, and it is with regard to basic commodities.
Speaker, can I appeal to the Minister with regard to Kanot village, which is now in a red zone? The inhabitants of Kanot are having problem because the suppliers are not allowed to supply food in the shops there, and there is a problem of goods which are not coming also the supermarket of Petite Rivière, Green Price, which normally is the only one in the region. So can I appeal to the Minister to ask officers to deal with the police and ask the retail, the suppliers to come and supply the shops of Kanot?
Well, this is not the information I got, Mr. Speaker, sir. I have been informed that for constituency number 15, 16, 17, and Canot Village, the delivery is being done as per the day and time allowed by the police, and it is being done 3 times a week. I take on board your request, and I shall address it with the police to ensure that there is no, il n'y a pas de pénurie dans la chaîne de distribution.
Last supplementary.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le ministre, malheureusement, il n'y a pas que les supermarchés et les légumes, il y a aussi les pharmacies. Je parle ici en pensant à ces milliers d'aînés, de retraités qui achètent leurs médicaments en pharmacie privée. Dès l'annonce du lockdown, le lendemain, cette information a augmenté leur prix pour les médicaments de plus de 15 à 20%. C'est scandaleux, Monsieur le ministre. Est-ce que le ministère peut intervenir à ce niveau-là, au niveau des pharmacies aussi?
We will, certainly, but we should encourage the general population to report these pharmacies and different trades that practice abusive prices.
Next question.
B27.
Mr. Speaker, sir, with regard to part A of the question, I'm informed that as of now, no malpractice has been established in relation to emergency procurement undertaken during the first confinement period. There is an investigation being carried out by the Independent Commission Against Corruption into some alleged malpractices, but the inquiry is still ongoing. Mr. Speaker, sir, as regard to part B of the question, emergency procurement procedures are defined by Section 21 of the Public Procurement Act 2006. In addition to this, on 19th March 2020, the Procurement Policy Office issued Directive 44, setting out the instruction to be followed for having recourse to emergency procurement during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm further informed that there have been no changes brought to the emergency procurement procedures up to now. However, should the need be felt, the Procurement Policy Office would do the needful.
Monsieur le ministre, donc il n'y a pas eu de changement dans les procédures. Est-ce qu'on peut savoir du ministre, du moins, si le ministère de la Santé s'est prévalu du emergency procurement dans ce présent confinement?
Mr. Speaker, sir, if the honourable member will come with a proper question, I'm going to give the answer for that.
Does the minister agree that when he packed all those allegations on malpractices, he ended up with so many blisters in his hands?
I don't agree.
You want to, please?
Is the Honourable
I'm
Minister...
confused with the leaders of the opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Honourable Minister whether he must have had an advance report of the Director of Audit, as published his report this morning. And in there, the Director of Audit says that he has been restricted in his verification because the information that he required regarding the COVID-19 pandemic was not available for him to audit, although he has a constitutional office. Is the Minister aware of that, and what is he going to do to make the information available to the Director of Audit?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I again invite the honourable member to come up with a question. I'm going to give the answer, reply.
Last supplementary.
Merci, Monsieur le ministre. Monsieur le ministre, vu les allégations graves dans le passé concernant, les allégations, je dis bien, concernant l'achat des équipements médicaux dans le dernier confinement, est-ce que le ministre peut donner la garantie, du moins, à la Chambre, à la population, au pays, que s'il devrait y avoir d'achat, que le ministère, son ministère, et je sais qu'il est sincère à ce niveau-là, que son ministère ne fera pas appel comme facilitateur au senior advisor, le docteur Djoumaï, s'il vous plaît, pas le docteur Djoumaï cette fois-ci. Non, s'il peut prendre l'engagement, qu'on n'aura pas de... Parce que c'est après le confinement qu'on saura. Est-ce qu'il peut prendre l'engagement que le docteur Djoumaï ne sera pas là?
Next question. Honourable Ramphal.
B28.
Mr. Speaker, sir, in July 2020, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs informed my ministry that there was a proposal from the Global Alliance for Vaccine and Immunization inviting Mauritius to submit a non-bidding expression of interest for the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines being developed by several international pharmaceutical companies. After consultation with all relevant stakeholders, my ministry entered into an agreement with the Gavi Alliance. The agreement provides for the procurement of vaccines up to 20% of the population, estimated at 253,600. On 16 December 2020, my ministry also approached other manufacturers, namely AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, and Gamaleya Research Institute, seeking information in respect of the process and modalities for the procurement of each vaccine, the prices thereof, the supply chain, the temperature requirement, and the scheduled delivery of the vaccine. Pfizer requested my ministry to enter into a non-disclosure agreement, which my ministry did. Thereafter, the working session webinar was held with the representatives of Pfizer on 7th January 2021, with my ministry was requested to make an official request. My ministry submitted a request for the procurement of 1 million doses of Pfizer vaccine and requested the manufacturer to inform about the terms and conditions, delivery schedule, and pricing. Pfizer requested my ministry to sign a non-disclosure agreement, which my ministry did. However, there was no conclusive deal with any of the manufacturers. The African Union is also facilitating the procurement of COVID-19 vaccines for AU members countries through the African Medical Supplies Platform. The latter informed my ministry that the allotment for Mauritius would be 199,682 doses, of which 48,451 from Pfizer and 151,231 from Johnson & Johnson. The purpose of the Safety Data Exchange Agreement was to describe the procedures and define the responsibilities between my ministry and the Serum Institute of India concerning the emergency use of Covishield vaccine. Now, on 27th January, a firm order was placed on the Serum Institute of India for the purchase of 300,000 doses of Covishield vaccines, 100,000 to be supplied in February, 100,000 doses in first quarter, and 100,000 doses in second quarter. The first consignment of 100,000 doses of Covishield vaccine reached Mauritius on 21st February 2021. The date of expiry of the vaccine is July 2021. Second consignment of 100,000 doses of Covishield vaccine is expected in mid-April 2021, and the last consignment by the end of June 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, the 200,000 doses already available will cover for nearly 100,000 persons in order to achieve herd immunity. My ministry has ordered 1 million vaccine from Serum Institute of India, which has requested us to submit a purchase order for only 300,000 doses. On March 2021, the High Commission of India informed my ministry that vaccines against COVID-19 manufactured...
This question has already been fully debated during the PNQ, and all these answers have already been given by the minister. Can the answer be cut?
Too much noise on this side.
Can he just curtail his answer and allow us to put our question, please?
Quiet.
It's a waste of parliamentary time.
You made your point. It's okay. Honorable members, be quiet. Honorable members, Minister, finish your reply.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I will continue because these questions were addressed to me, and it's my duty to give all the details, even if I have to give it 100 of times more.
Next supplementary question, Honorable Doctor.
I have only one question. This question has already been debated fully. There is a lot of concern internationally and locally with regards to the content of the vaccines
the side effects, product liability, exclusion of liability, all these are questions of concerns. And in order to allow the public to make an informed decision and also to boost public confidence, many countries have resorted to the rules of transparency.
This is, you're creating
The
confusion.
EU, yes, the question is, the EU has made public all purchase agreements which contain all the clauses, and many countries have followed the same principle. On a matter of transparency, is the minister ready so that the Mauritians can have an informed decision, make all these purchase agreements public?
Mr. Speaker, sir, again, I invite the honourable member to come up with this question. I'm going to give all the details and information related to his question.
Just one last question. With regards to the vaccines that we're supposed to get from under the COVAX facility, we have signed not an ordinary agreement, a committed purchase agreement. We are a self-financing partner of COVAX facility, and we are in a situation of urgency. Can we know from the minister when we are going to get our batch of vaccines under the COVAX facility?
Mr. Speaker, sir, for the COVAX facility, in my reply earlier, I've already mentioned what is the contribution of UNDP in the COVAX facility. I'm not going to repeat again. And as far as the batch that we are supposed to receive, we are liaising with the WHO. They will give us the appropriate date. But there is a forecast that we should receive the vaccination in April or May, in the month of May.
Next question, Honourable Ramphal.
B29.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the manufacturers and suppliers of the vaccine COVID-19 provide information on effectiveness, composition, and expiry of the vaccine produced by them. According to the WHO, the AstraZeneca COVID vaccine, which is a viral vector vaccine, has an efficacy of 66.7% against symptomatic SARS-CoV infection after administration of 2 doses. It was found that the vaccine efficacy increased significantly when the intervals between the first dose and the second dose is done after a period of 8 to 12 weeks. The vaccine efficacy is then of 76 to 82% according to recent studies. The vaccine, commercialized under the brand name Covaxin, has been approved by the Drugs Controller General of India for emergency use. In Mauritius, the Trade and Therapeutics Committee, the Pharmacy Board, and the COVID-19 Vaccination Committee have also approved the emergency use of the Covaxin. The Covaxin vaccine is an inactivated COVID-19 vaccine with adjuvant. The conclusions of its phase 1 and 2 trials have been published in the Lancet. My ministry has been provided with interim analysis of phase 3 trials. In all, 25,800 persons aged between 18 and 98 took part in the phase, and more than 9 million persons have already received a first dose of the Covaxin. The interim results of phase 3 trials show that the vaccine has an efficacy of 80.6% when the number of COVID-19 cases registered in the vaccinated group and the placebo group are compared. Currently, the duration of the efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines remains unknown, given that the time elapsed as from the first vaccination till date is only for some months. As of now, we know that the duration of the immunity conferred by the vaccine is of at least 8 months. This period of 8 months could, however, be extended, but only time will tell. In the light of current available data, the rates of efficacy of different vaccines against the South African and Brazilian variants cannot be established with precision. disparities between the smaller number of existing studies. We know that viral vector vaccines and inactivated vaccines with adjuvant convey a cellular immunity, which is not modified by mutations. This is opposed to antibody immunity, which is in this case can be diminished by mutations but the immunity remains present. Regarding the UK variant, the vaccines have the same efficacy as with the initial strain of COVID-19.
Yes, we have heard it from the director of Abiolabs that according to him, the interim report that was submitted to the authorities, it shows that the new variants are present in Mauritius. We have not heard any confirmation from government. Can the minister confirm if the interim report shows that there are new variants presently in Mauritius?
Abiolabs have been conducting these tests first time. It's the first time. And whatever results they have been given, we have to cross-check it with the South African CDC, and then we can compare whether these results are the same or not.
What are the results? My question is, what are the results according to Fabiolabs? I don't want to know about the confirmation. What are the interim results that have been submitted to Abiolabs?
At this stage, the ministry has not received any interim results from the Abiolab.
Monsieur le Président, l'honorable ministre avait laissé entendre à un certain moment que les 200 000 doses de Covaxin seraient un don du gouvernement indien. Et voilà que nous apprenons que tel n'est plus le cas, et cela à travers le communiqué émis à l'issue du dernier Conseil des ministres.
Put your question.
Peut-on savoir ce qui s'est passé, à quoi est dû ce revirement et quel est le coût de cette cargaison de 200 000 doses de Covaxin?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I've replied to this question earlier, giving all the details of what were the donations and what were the procurement.
Yes, thank you. In regard to that specific reply that the Honourable Minister gave this morning, if I heard him correctly, is $15 per dose, meaning 600 rupees, and 200,000 rupees, meaning $3 million. Right? Yes. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, because the question pertains to supplier, what is the name of the supplier who has purchased this vaccine, which to my view is very expensive, because compared to AstraZeneca, which is way cheaper and approved by WHO.
Mr. Speaker, sir, the vaccine has been procured directly from the Bharat BioNTech laboratory, and whatever be the financing has been done directly to that laboratory. There is no intermediary.
From what I understand, according to the minister, there is no scientific evidence at this stage to suggest that either Covishield or Covaxin are resilient against the South African virus. If that is true, and if this is the case, then what government proposes to do with regards to all the number of persons who have been administered Covishield and Covaxin?
Honourable Member, it's very preliminary. We are at a very preliminary stage to comment on effectiveness of variant on vaccine. Let the international studies come. We all come to know what are the vaccines that would be effective against variants.
Did you hear what Dr. Tumai said?
Okay, leader. You have another question?
You want another question? No, the next question, B31.
B30, I think, is it?
B30, yes, sorry, B30.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I wish to inform the House that my ministry has, for the time being, requested the District Council of Grand Port to put on hold the approved project under the COVID-19 Project Development Fund and the Local Development Project, given that two priority projects have jointly been identified for implementation, namely the construction of a food court at Rosebel Market Fair, estimated at 12 million rupees, and the relocation of hawkers at Nouvelle-France to the existing football ground at an estimated cost of 20 million rupees. With regard to the proposed food court project at the Rosebel Market Fair, following a joint site meeting held on the 6th of October 2020 at the Rosebel Market Fair in the presence of the Honourable Minister of Financial Services and Good Governance, the Honourable Parliamentary Private Secretary, and the Honourable Government Chief Whip, who are elected members of the National Assembly for constituency number 11, and the then chairperson of the District Council of Grand Port, together with officers of the Council, it was agreed that there was an urgent need to have a proper food court for the market fair for health and safety reasons. As a matter of fact, the District Council of Grand Port has proposed the project of food court at Rosebel Market Fair on the 12th of October 2020 for funding consideration under the COVID-19 Project Development Fund.
Too noisy this one.
As for the relocation of the fair at Nouvelle-France, the District Council of Grand Port had, on the 4th of January 2018, addressed a request to the Sugar Industry Labour Welfare Fund with respect to the relocation of the illegal fair usually held along Sigoulam Road, opposite Phoenixburg, Nouvelle-France, following an increasing number of representation. Moreover, it is to be highlighted that the District Council of Grand Port had, at its meeting held on the 20th of December 2017, decided to relocate the illegal fair at Nouvelle-France to resolve all the issues related to it. Therefore, it is not correct to state that the Council was not agreeable to undertake this project being proposed and for which reallocation of funds are under consideration. On the contrary, my ministry is providing funds for this project, one of which dates back to December 2017, in order to resolve the long outstanding issues and for the benefit of the inhabitants of the localities concerned under the COVID-19 Project Development Fund, Economic Recovery Program, and the Local Development Project. Mr. Speaker, sir, I reassure the House that for capital project, my ministry works in collaboration with the local authorities and the members of the National Assembly for a better coordination and prioritization of projects to ensure that the needs of the citizens are met.
Mr. the Speaker, sir, is he aware that projects approved under the COVID Project Development Fund is approved by an independent body chaired by the Financial Secretary under the Minister of Finance? Is he not usurping the right, the responsibility of that committee when he takes it upon himself to reallocate funds for projects that have not been approved under the COVID fund?
Mr. Speaker, sir, this project, when reallocation is made, are referred to the Ministry of Finance for reallocation. So I don't appropriate any authority from anybody.
The minister is telling the House that he's depriving projects to no more than 22 villages. 22 villages are being deprived of projects because of him, because of his ministry, and benefiting only 2 villages.
So what is the question?
Does he find this right and fair?
It's not my ministry who decide, Mr. Speaker, sir. These projects are decided by the MPs in their constituency, and as I mentioned earlier, in the first case, by the then chairman of the district council, and in the second case, by the district council in 2017. So I am not changing any project. This was decided by the council at that particular time.
Next question.
Those 2 ministers from constituency number 12,
Mr. Ariram and Mr. Tusa, have they made representations to you that
No, this is not
they,
a question. This is not a question. I'm sorry.
projects are being deprived?
I'm sorry. Quiet, please. This is not a question. You have another question, put it.
I'll move on to the next question, B31.
Monsieur le Président, le monde est plongé dans la pandémie de la Covid-19 depuis maintenant plus d'un an. Dans ce contexte, le gouvernement mauricien n'a jamais lésiné ni sur les moyens, ni sur la rapidité de son action. Et cela dans un seul et même but, celui d'apporter son aide aux ménages mauriciens et aux opérateurs économiques. Nous avons, dès les premiers cas de contamination confirmés sur notre territoire, mis en place des mesures d'assistance inédites. L'étendue et la vitesse d'implémentation ont été saluées au-delà de nos frontières par de nombreuses organisations internationales. Je pense notamment au Fonds monétaire international ou encore au programme des Nations unies pour le développement. Le Wage Assistance Scheme et le Self-Employed Assistance Scheme ont permis de préserver les fondamentaux de notre structure économique et aussi de notre modèle social. Et pour cause, cela a permis d'éviter le spectre des 100 000 chômeurs. Nous avons également pu empêcher la faillite de nombreuses entreprises. Ce faisant, nous avons protégé de notre mieux les moyens de subsistance de nos compatriotes. Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne la partie A de la question, j'ai été informé par la Mauritius Revenue Authority que depuis l'introduction du Wage Assistance Scheme et du Self-Employed Assistance Scheme, soit de mars 2020 à ce jour, un montant total de 18 milliards de roupies ont été déboursés. Dans le cadre de ces deux régimes, la répartition des déboursements pour la période allant de mars 2020 à février 2021 s'est effectuée comme suit. Premièrement, au titre du Wage Assistance Scheme, 12,5 milliards de roupies ont été versés à 273 120 employés travaillant dans 15 381 entreprises. Et deuxièmement, 2,5 milliards de roupies ont été versés à 204 050 travailleurs indépendants au titre du Self-Employed Assistance Scheme. Monsieur le Président, compte tenu du confinement actuel, le gouvernement a décidé pour le mois de mars 2021, d'une part, de continuer à fournir une assistance financière sous les deux régimes précités aux opérateurs du secteur du tourisme à Maurice et à Rodrigue pour le mois entier en cours, et d'autre part, d'étendre ces deux mécanismes d'assistance à l'ensemble des salariés et travailleurs indépendants opérant dans les différents secteurs d'activité à Maurice, et cela pour une durée de 2 semaines. Nous estimons que l'assistance financière accordée pour le mois de mars 2021 aux opérateurs du secteur du tourisme, couplée à l'extension de deux régimes pour l'ensemble des salariés du privé et travailleurs indépendants pour la période allant du 10 mars au 25 mars 2021, aura un coût total de 3 milliards de roupies. Sur ce dernier point, je souhaite informer la Chambre que le versement de l'allocation aux salariés et aux travailleurs indépendants est actuellement en cours. En outre, et au regard du contexte actuel affectant particulièrement les travailleurs indépendants, le gouvernement, sous le leadership du Premier ministre, a également décidé de leur verser une subvention exceptionnelle de 10 000 roupies. Cette aide exceptionnelle bénéficiera aux 204 050 travailleurs indépendants enregistrés auprès de la Mauritius Revenue Authority. Je précise qu'elle sera versée avant le 31 mars 2021 en sus de l'assistance financière reçue par les travailleurs indépendants sous le Self-Employed Assistance Scheme. Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne les fonds déboursés par la Mauritius Investment Corporation, je rappelle que la MIC est une société privée à responsabilité limitée. Par conséquent, je ne peux faire de commentaires sur ces opérations. En revanche, il m'est possible de communiquer les informations déjà publiques présentes sur son site Web. D'après les informations disponibles, en date du 8 mars 2021, la MIC a déboursé près de 2 milliards de roupies, c'est-à-dire 1,947 milliards de roupies pour être exact. Monsieur le Président, en ce qui concerne la partie B de la question, j'ai été informé par le ministère du Travail et du Développement, des Ressources humaines et de la formation qu'entre les mois de mars 2020 et février 2021, quelques 8 962 cas de licenciement économique ont été signalés. Enfin, pour ce qui est de la partie C de la question, selon les informations qui me sont parvenues, les chiffres officiels du taux de chômage pour l'année 2020 seront publiés sur le site web de Statistique Mauritius le 18 mai 2021. Cela étant dit, selon les informations communiquées par le ministère du Travail, du Développement des Ressources humaines et de la Formation, à la fin de l'année 2020, 30 371 personnes étaient enregistrées sur le registre du chômage du ministère et cherchant activement un emploi. À cette même date, 21 640 individus supplémentaires étaient enregistrés comme demandeurs d'emploi alors qu'ils étaient à cette période déjà en poste. Par conséquent, au 31 décembre 2020, un total de 52 011 individus étaient enregistrés auprès du ministère du Travail, du Développement, des Ressources humaines et de la Formation comme demandeurs d'emploi. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. The Speaker. Sir, can we know from the Honourable Minister, he mentioned, I think, that 2 billion have been earmarked for the new lockdown, the second lockdown. Can we know where the funds come from?
Ces fonds proviennent des provisions qui a été fait pendant le budget 2020-2021. Donc du fonds du Consolidated Fund.
Given that the expected growth for this year has been far below what the Honourable Minister has mentioned, that does he still maintain that the budget deficit would be at 0% GDP?
Monsieur le Président, je demanderai à l'honorable membre, il a posé des questions spécifiques concernant l'allocation sur le Wage Assistance Scheme et le Self-Employed Assistance Scheme. Pour des questions supplémentaires concernant la macroéconomie, venez avec une question spécifique et je me ferai un plaisir de lui donner tous les détails.
The Honourable Minister of Finance last year in his budget announced that the central bank would be putting 80 billion rupees we disbursed through MIC. And today, we're almost 1 year later, only 2 billion has been disbursed. Can the Honourable Minister of Finance explain this fight total of his plan of MIC?
Monsieur le Président, je n'utiliserai pas le terme faillite totale. C'est en fonction des demandes qu'ils sont en train de recevoir. La MIC, c'est une société d'investissement public. Et ils ont quand même à respecter énormément de règles, comme ils le font pour les investissements qu'ils font à l'étranger. Ils ont, selon les informations, déjà retenu des demandes à hauteur d'environ 17 milliards de roupies, mais ils sont en train de vérifier et ils sont en train de débourser au fur et à mesure que les demandes se font.
Next question.
B32.
I'm informed that the first 2 cases of COVID-19 at Melby's nursery school were detected on 7th March 2021. Following a contact tracing exercise, 316 persons consisting of 95 registered pupils at Melby's nursery school, 16 teaching and non-teaching staff members, and 205 parents and siblings were quarantined. As for part D of the question, the following quarantine centers were used: Lagoon Attitude, Long Beach Hotel, Le Mauritius, Maradiva, Constance Prince Maurice, Beachcomber Trou Beach, and Constance Belmore Plage. Mr. Speaker, sir, the last day of school at Melby's nursery school was on 26 February 2021. As informed, the first 2 cases of COVID-19 at the school were detected on 7th March 2021. Consequently, the quarantine period for the children and parents other than the 2 positive cases was up to the 14th day from the last contact. However, some parents who were quarantined at Lagoon Attitude Hotel breached the condition of the quarantine. Hence, their quarantine period had to be extended. Moreover, a group of 14 persons who were quarantined at Le Mauritius Hotel also had to extend their quarantine stay as the last day of contact with the positive cases could not be ascertained. Mr. Speaker, sir, I also wish to inform that as some rooms could not accommodate families of more than 2 persons and some children had difficulties to cope with the confined space, 31 persons were transferred from Lagoon Attitude to Constance Belmore Plage, which had more spacious rooms.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Ministre, pourquoi une famille spécifique a-t-elle pu se rendre au centre de quarantaine par ses propres moyens alors que les autres ont été transportés par le ministère de la Santé et sous escorte policière? Et pourquoi cette même famille, je vous parle de monsieur le CEO de Mauritius Telecom, VVIP, qui n'a passé que 4 jours en quarantaine, contrairement aux autres 14 jours?
Mr. Speaker, sir, for this family, I don't have the information, but once I will have the information, I can reply. Now, why they have spent 4 days? I think the duration of the quarantine period was determined based on the last date of contact with the positive cases and was decided based on the advice of the technical expert of my ministry. This is in line with the interim guidance of the WHO on contact tracing in the context of COVID-19, issued on 1st February 2021, which recommends supported quarantine for a duration of 14 days from the last contact with a confirmed case to minimize risk of onward transmission.
Béranger. Oui, honorable Béranger.
Merci. Des recherches comme celle de Sprong et Silman en 2013 ont montré que les enfants isolés ou mis en quarantaine sont plus susceptibles de développer des états de stress aigus. Pourrait-on savoir si la quarantaine était la seule solution dans ce cas? Si oui, quelle prise en charge axée sur l'intérêt de l'enfant ou quel soutien psychologique a été apporté à ces enfants en quarantaine?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think I totally agree with the honorable member because children in quarantine, they're going to have, it's very difficult for children to stay in quarantine. But these children, they have been staying with their parents, and the ministry is doing, at that time, when Mauritius was having only few cases, and hardly few days later, we jumped to having more than 60 cases. Ministry trying to do everything that is possible to facilitate, to accommodate these children in better places. That's why they have been transferred in other hotels for their proper accommodation.
Last supplementary, Honorable Juman.
Monsieur le ministre, vous avez parlé de breach of quarantine par certains à l'hôtel Lagoon Attitude. Puis-je savoir comment ces breach of quarantine concernent quoi?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, sir. They're in a hotel where we are using as quarantine. Hotels are accommodating more than 200, at times 300 quarantine persons. In that hotel, there is one quarantine officer, nursing officer, and there are very few people. Can you imagine how is it possible for only those few staff working in quarantine centers to be able to look after each and everyone who's been quarantined? In that case, we should have for every person, we should have a quarantine officer and a police officer to supervise the other police officers.
Time is over, but I allow you one last question. Show.
Monsieur le ministre, ce que vous venez de dire à l'Assemblée, c'est très grave. On est en centre de quarantaine sous la responsabilité du ministère. Voilà cette photo qui a été prise le 12 mars avec des enfants qui jouaient dans la cour. Vers qui la responsabilité? C'est aux parents ou au ministère?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I think the honourable member should understand the context children were admitted. And it's the responsibility of the parents to look after the children.
Are you giving the answer?
You want to...
Time over. I have to advise that PQ B41, B42, B45 have been withdrawn.
Motion.
Motion.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I move that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10.
Seconded. The question is that all the business on today's order paper be exempted from the provisions of paragraph 2 of Standing Order 10. Those in favor say aye, those against say no. The ayes have it.
Statement by Minister.
I have two statements to make. Firstly, I wish to make a statement on government's response to the resurgence of COVID-19 in Mauritius since Friday, 5th March 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is widely acknowledged that government had acted proactively in addressing the serious threats posed by the outbreak of COVID-19 last year. It is a fact that government had acted prudently and responsibly and had taken the right decisions at the right time in 2020 in the face of an invisible enemy and of then unknown factors so as to restore our country to its COVID-safe status. Even, Mr. Speaker, sir, even the big and powerful nations have not had any respite from this invisible enemy since January 2020, when the virus started to cause havoc on our planet. As of today, there are more than 122 million confirmed cases of COVID-19, including 2.7 million deaths across the world. Health experts agree that there is no such thing as zero risk in the battle against this virus. The only and best way of combating it is to mitigate and manage the risk by responsibly and scrupulously following and abiding by all the health and safety measures and orders legally imposed for the common protection and for the common good. Mr. Speaker, sir, in our response to the resurgence of COVID-19, our immediate priorities continue to constantly revolve around saving lives and livelihoods, and at the same time to implement a vaccination program to achieve herd immunity. We are ensuring that our hospitals are adequately equipped to provide the best possible treatment to those infected and also to other patients requiring medical attention and care. Government and our health authorities, police and all other stakeholders continue to work tirelessly and relentlessly to contain the spread of the disease. Mr. Speaker, sir, in order to ensure proper coordination, monitoring and timely actions, the High-Level Committee on COVID-19 has been meeting under my chair
on a daily basis since 6th March 2021. We have been taking some very bold and necessary measures in order to stop the spread of the virus, including a national confinement. In particular, we have taken more stringent measures in constituencies 15, 16 and 17, as well as in the village of Kanot, where clusters have been identified. Mr. Speaker, sir, the other containment measures which are being implemented include the following: closing of all commercial premises and offices except those providing essential services, extending all necessary resources to and strengthening the overall preparedness and response of the Ministry of Health and Wellness to enable it to cope effectively with this threat. Strengthening of the contact tracing teams of the Ministry of Health and Wellness to enable them to carry out screening and testing of a maximum number of persons, particularly in the red zones. Reactivating all the 18 lines of the COVID-19 hotline, inviting public and private sectors employees to work from home wherever possible. Suspension of all passenger flights to Rodrigues so as to keep the island free from COVID-19, and setting up of a national vaccination fund. Mr. Speaker, sir, we are today fighting the resurgence with the hindsight and experience we gathered in containing the first onslaught. As a government, our resolve and commitment to save lives and livelihoods remain unabated. Nothing matters more than Mauritian lives and Mauritian livelihoods. Mr. Speaker, sir, any such confinement measure inevitably causes some hardship to the population. Government is very sensitive to such adverse impact, particularly on the most vulnerable families. In order to mitigate the impact and reduce their hardship, the government has come up with a host of measures which include the following: ensuring that commercial premises, including hypermarkets, supermarkets, pharmacies, and others, remain open so that people can obtain their basic necessities and urgent medical treatment while observing all the necessary sanitary protocol. Ensuring adequate supply of basic commodities, delivery of basic pensions at place of residence to around 13,000 beneficiaries. These are usually paid through post offices. Providing work access permits to carers looking after the elderly and persons with disabilities. Special arrangement for vegetable growers in constituencies number 15, 16 and 17 to sell their products in bulk in specific places. Allowing all registered fishermen to carry out their fishing activities under specified conditions, and reactivating the hotline for victims of domestic violence and putting the emergency child protection services on high alert. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to emphasize the fact that, once again, the government has been managing the present crisis in a very transparent manner. The National Communication Committee has been holding daily press briefings to keep the population informed on the evolution of the COVID-19 situation at national level. For obvious reasons, we have again decided, in the interest of one and all, to shift the question and answer session on a virtual platform. In addition, the Be Safe Maurice mobile application provides updated information on COVID throughout the day. Mr. Speaker, sir, we also decided to maintain the resumption of the National Assembly as scheduled and to subject ourselves to parliamentary scrutiny through PNQs and PQs. As a matter of fact, the PNQ and most of the PQs on the list of today's sitting related to the COVID situation in Mauritius. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, which is at the forefront of our country's battle against the virus, has been leaving no stone unturned and sparing no effort to muster all its human and logistic resources on a 24/7 basis to not only detect and contain COVID-19 infections, but also to care for and cure infected persons. During the daily briefings by the National Communication Committee, details are also given of the number of contact tracings, locations of these contact tracings, and immediate actions taken following detection of infected persons. Details are also provided on tests carried out in our flu clinics and random testing, and on the number of persons in our quarantine centers. Mr. Speaker, sir, and I come to the issue of vaccination, which has been the subject of extensive debate during the PNQ of this morning, and which has been the subject of disinformation and criticisms in certain quarters. I would like to inform the House that Mauritius was among the first countries to signify its intention to procure vaccines from different manufacturers, and had even placed orders accordingly, to ascertain that vaccines were available on time to kickstart our vaccination program soon as possible. However, as explained by the Minister of Health and Wellness this morning, because of the very high demand of COVID vaccines across the world and the reluctance by manufacturing countries to supply vaccines to developing countries, it is obvious that small countries like ours will have difficulties in procuring vaccines in sufficient quantities. Mr. Speaker, sir, I would here like to place on record our deepest gratitude to the Government of India for the generous donation of 100,000 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine, and also for its acceptance to supply to Mauritius a further 100,000 doses of AstraZeneca and 200,000 doses of Covaxin. Other friendly countries and institutions like China, the Gavi Vaccine Alliance Facility, and the African Union have also volunteered to donate or supply vaccines to Mauritius. I would equally like to express my heartfelt thanks to all of them. I would here also like to place on record the valuable assistance extended by the WHO in our fight against COVID. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Ministry of Health and Wellness is pursuing the COVID-19 vaccination program, which is being conducted under strict sanitary conditions and according to an established plan. We have also secured the assistance of private clinics in this exercise. The vaccination campaign is proceeding satisfactorily in spite of the misapprehension which may have been created in the media by some ill-intentioned persons in instilling fear and doubts among the population about the vaccines and the consent form. As at 22nd of March 2021, more than 118,000 persons have already been administered with the COVID vaccine. The target is to vaccinate at least 60% of the population by July 2021 in order to achieve herd immunity and pave the way for a gradual return to near normalcy, including the reopening of our borders. Mr. Speaker, sir, the government has also come up with a host of measures in order to provide financial assistance to SMEs in restructuring their capital requirements and to survive the crisis. SMEs that are negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the current confinement period, and which satisfy the established criteria, are eligible for support under 5 different schemes. Moreover, government has also maintained the wage assistance scheme and the self-employed scheme introduced last year. This includes a one-off grant of 10,000 rupees payable to all persons registered with the MRA under the self-employed assistance scheme as at 15th of March 2021. Mr. Speaker, sir, as for the education sector, especially with regard to the SC, HSC examinations, as well as PESAC and NCA assessments, the Ministry of Education and the MES, in collaboration with authorities concerned, have made all necessary arrangements, including availability of public transport facilities, so as to enable all candidates, including those from the red zones, to take their examinations in the best possible conditions. Mr. Speaker, sir, in regard to our compatriots who may be stranded abroad, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has issued a communiqué on 17th of March 2021, advising them to stay in the country where they are located and to keep in touch with their travel agencies in order to avail of travel opportunities once scheduled flights for passengers to travel to Mauritius are reinstated. A help desk and a hotline have also been set up at that ministry to provide guidance and assistance to those in difficulties overseas. Our diplomatic missions and consulates are lending a strong support in these efforts. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is an undeniable fact that COVID-19 has disrupted our lives and impacted severely on our economy. As we boldly face these unprecedented times, what is required are comprehension, a responsible attitude, and above all, patriotism and solidarity. These are times to focus all our energy on winning the battle fast, so that the nation can resume the COVID-safe status and move forward resolutely once again towards socio-economic advancement. Finally, I must pay very special tribute to the police, medical personnel, and to all frontliners for their unflinching dedication to duty and service, while I commend our population as a whole for its due care and caution. Mr. Speaker, sir, government is convinced that together, as a mature and informed nation, we shall overcome the COVID scare and consequences while continuing to keep a premium on the protection of our population. I have another statement to make, and this relates to the recent judgment of the International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea, ITLOS, on the maritime boundary dispute between Mauritius and the Maldives. As the House is aware, on 28th January 2021, a special chamber of ITLOS delivered its judgment on the preliminary objections raised by the Maldives in the case brought by Mauritius under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea for the delimitation of the maritime boundary between the two countries in the region of the Chagos Archipelago. At the core of the Maldives' preliminary objections was the claim that there was an unresolved sovereignty dispute between Mauritius and the United Kingdom over the Chagos Archipelago. The Maldives argued that the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice of 25th February 2019 did not resolve the sovereignty dispute over the Chagos Archipelago and is, in any case, not binding. The Maldives also argued that the United Kingdom was an indispensable third party and that its absence from the proceedings prevented the special chamber from exercising jurisdiction. By a large majority, with only the ad hoc judge appointed by Maldives dissenting, the special chamber of ITLOS rejected all the preliminary objections of the Maldives and held that it has jurisdiction to delimit the maritime boundary between Mauritius and the Maldives in the Chagos Archipelago region. In so doing, the special chamber of ITLOS also confirmed that Mauritius has undisputed sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago. It ruled that the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice resolved the question of sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago when the court determined, without a single dissenting vote on the merits, that the Chagos Archipelago is and has always been an integral part of Mauritius. The Special Chamber of ITLOS also ruled that the United Kingdom's continued claim to sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago is contrary to the determinations made by the International Court of Justice, to the effect that the detachment of the Chagos Archipelago from Mauritius was unlawful and that the United Kingdom's continued administration of the Chagos Archipelago constitutes an unlawful act of a continuing character entailing the international responsibility of that state. It further held that the United Kingdom has no claim, but only, I quote, a mere assertion, and that such, unquote, and that such assertion does not prove the existence of a dispute. The Special Chamber of ITLOS also held that the United Nations General Assembly was entrusted by the International Court of Justice to take necessary steps towards the completion of the decolonization of Mauritius, and that its resolution 73/295 is equally relevant to assessing the legal status of the Chagos Archipelago. The Special Chamber considered that the resolution's time limit of 22nd November 2019 for the unconditional withdrawal of the United Kingdom's colonial administration from the Chagos Archipelago constituted one of the modalities for ensuring the completion of the decolonization of Mauritius pursuant to the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice. ITLOS ruled that, and I quote, the fact that the time limit set by the General Assembly has passed without the United Kingdom complying with this demand further strengthens the Special Chamber's finding that its claim to sovereignty over the Chagos Archipelago is contrary to the authoritative determinations made in the advisory opinion, unquote. With regard to the Maldives' contention that the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice is not binding, an argument which the United Kingdom has also been advancing, the Special Chamber of ITLOS ruled that, and I quote, an advisory opinion entails an authoritative statement of international law on the questions with which it deals, unquote. In that regard, the Special Chamber of ITLOS held that, and I quote, judicial determinations made in advisory opinions carry no less weight and authority than those in judgments because they are made with the same rigor and scrutiny by the principal judicial organ of the United Nations with competence in matters of international law, unquote. The Special Chamber of ITLOS underscored that, I quote, determinations made by the International Court of Justice in an advisory opinion cannot be disregarded simply because the advisory opinion is not binding. This is true of the International Court of Justice's determinations in the Chagos advisory opinion, inter alia, that the process of decolonization of Mauritius was not lawfully completed when that country acceded to independence in 1968, following the separation of the Chagos Archipelago, and that the United Kingdom is under an obligation to bring to an end its administration of the Chagos Archipelago as rapidly as possible. The Special Chamber considers that those determinations do have legal effect, unquote. With regard to the claim that the United Kingdom was an indispensable third party, the Special Chamber of Itlos ruled that, I quote, "It is inconceivable that the United Kingdom, whose administration over the Chagos Archipelago constitute a wrongful act of a continuing character, and thus must be brought to an end as rapidly as possible, and yet who has failed to do so, can have any legal interest in permanently disposing of maritime zones around the Chagos Archipelago by delimitation," unquote. The Special Chamber of Itlos thus concluded that Mauritius is to be, and I quote, "regarded as the coastal state in respect of the Chagos Archipelago for the purpose of the delimitation of a maritime boundary even before the process of the decolonization of Mauritius is completed," unquote. The Special Chamber of Itlos also rejected the Maldives' argument that the 2015 arbitral award rendered in the case Mauritius against United Kingdom, and which had determined that the United Kingdom violated its obligations under the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea by purportedly establishing a marine protected area around the Chagos Archipelago, has res judicata effect in regard to the existence of a sovereignty dispute between Mauritius and the United Kingdom over the Chagos Archipelago. The Special Chamber confirmed that the arbitral award never recognized the United Kingdom as a coastal state with respect to the Chagos Archipelago. Following its judgment that it has jurisdiction to delimit the maritime boundary between Mauritius and the Maldives, the Special Chamber of Itlos has fixed the time limits for the submission by the parties of their written pleadings on the merits. Mauritius will have to submit its memorial by 25th May 2021, and the Maldives its counter-memorial by 25th November 2021. A judgment on the merits may be expected in late 2022 or early 2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, the judgment of the Special Chamber of Itlos constitutes another significant milestone in our long-standing struggle for the completion of the decolonization process of Mauritius. It is further confirmation that Mauritius alone is the state lawfully entitled to exercise sovereignty and sovereign rights over the Chagos Archipelago and its maritime zones. It follows from this that the marine protected area purportedly established by the United Kingdom around the Chagos Archipelago is illegal under international law and without effect. Government will continue to take all actions that it deems necessary in order to allow Mauritius to exercise its sovereignty and sovereign rights fully and completely over the Chagos Archipelago and its maritime zones. In this regard, it will continue to challenge the United Kingdom's membership of regional and international organizations where it purports to represent the Chagos Archipelago, as well as the purported membership of the so-called British Indian Ocean Territory in international organizations such as the Universal Postal Union. Government also remains committed to implementing a program for resettlement in the Chagos Archipelago, particularly with a view to enabling our citizens of Chagosian origin who were forcibly removed from the archipelago by the United Kingdom to fulfill their aspiration to return to their birthplace in full dignity and with due respect to their human rights. Mr. Speaker, sir, it is deeply regrettable that in replies given to parliamentary questions in the United Kingdom Parliament, and in statements made following the judgment of the Special Chamber of ITLOS. The United Kingdom government has shown blatant disregard for the authoritative determinations of the International Court of Justice and of the rulings of ITLOS. The stand of the United Kingdom government is all the more outstanding, having regard to the fact that the United Kingdom participated actively in the proceedings that led to the authoritative determinations of the International Court of Justice, and all its claims being rejected. It is significant that the arguments made by the Maldives were in substance similar to those made by the United Kingdom at the International Court of Justice, but were all rejected by ITLOS as well. In this connection, I wish to commend Honorable Lisa Nandy, the United Kingdom Shadow Foreign Secretary, for her strong condemnation of the United Kingdom's government stand. In a letter which she addressed on the 9th of February 2021 to the UK Foreign Secretary, Honorable Nandy deplored the UK government's disregard for the judgment of the Special Chamber of ITLOS. She pointed out that this is damaging to the United Kingdom's reputation, undermines its credibility and moral authority, and sets a damaging precedent that others may seize upon to undermine the national interests of the United Kingdom and those of its allies in other contexts or maritime disputes. I urge the United Kingdom government to stop being in denial of the legal reality and to bring itself into compliance with international law by immediately terminating its unlawful administration and occupation of the Chagos Archipelago. I should like to reiterate that security and defense considerations cannot justify the United Kingdom's illegal occupation of the Chagos Archipelago. Mauritius has on several occasions expressed its commitment to ensuring the continued operation of the defense facility in Diego Garcia in accordance with international law. It stands by this commitment and is ready to enter into a long-term arrangement with the United States in respect of Diego Garcia. Mr. Speaker, sir, at its last summit held on the 6th and 7th of February 2021, the African Union adopted a decision on the decolonization of Mauritius, in which it, inter alia, welcomed the judgment of the Special Chamber of ITLOS and reiterated its calls to the United Kingdom to comply with international law by immediately withdrawing its colonial administration from the Chagos Archipelago. The last AU summit also called upon AU member states and all partners to respect the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 73/295, which expressly urged United Nations member states, United Nations bodies, and regional and international organizations to refrain from any action that will impede or delay the completion of the process of decolonization of Mauritius in accordance with the advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice and the General Assembly resolution.